Okay, so this is the first lecture on, it's actually like 2.5 chapters. As I said in the beginning, in like the first video, there's just so much stuff in this book and in this course. And as we go through the different stages in the life course, we talk about those 3 separate domains that you'll remember from one of our first lectures: the cognitive, the psychosocial, which is the emotional and the social interaction, and the physical. And so we talk about that in the first year and the first 3 years and preschool. And so in this PowerPoint slide, and in this series of lectures, I'm going to be talking about material from chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 6. That does not mean everything is equally important. I will try to point your attention, I'll try to draw your attention to those more critical things for assessment purposes. But they're really, I found this, I believe this is one of the better ways to organize this material. And so, I'll just sort of get started. So it doesn't coincide, I don't have chapter numbers on the slides because it doesn't match up nicely. I want to begin where we left off in chapter 4. And I'm going to start somewhere, I'm going to start about with the material that begins on page 105, early physical development. And then we'll move into cognitive development, which is thinking. And I like to talk about psychosocial development the most. So these series of lectures probably has more emphasis on that part of human development. I hope that makes some sense. If that's not clear, please drop me a message and let me know. Okay, so the first section here is this early physical development, and there are a couple really important terms. I was debating actually about trying to like bold these for you so it made more sense. Let me see if I can't move my screen down. I think you can still see that, so that I can bold the stuff that's of more critical importance. And I don't see that I can figure out how to do that. Okay, so I'll just sort of draw your attention, and I guess we'll have to listen. It's these 2 terms right here, cephalocaudal and proximal-dorsal, which are also fun words to say. And these are what's referred to as the principles of growth. And they refer to how our bodies grow, from infancy on. Cephalocaudal, and if you take like a biology, and you will, if you're going into nursing, you'll need more biology courses, you'll hear these concepts and these phrases more. Cephalocaudal simply means we develop from the top down. It probably has some Latin origin. But you'll notice in this image here that when we're born, our head is disproportionately larger than the rest of our body. Our head develops first, our brain develops first, so we develop from the top down. And then as we get older, it becomes a relatively smaller proportion. That's an interesting observation because sociologists make reference to that as a sign or as a symbol of our cultural's attitude towards children. And they point out that if you look at historic images of children, their heads are not disproportionately larger than the rest of their body. And historians argue that that suggests that we don't regard children, or historically we didn't regard children as distinctive, but our heads are big. And then proximal-dorsal is the concept that we develop from the inside out. So and then when we talk about motor development, it's the same thing that happens. Like first we learn how to hold our head up. And first we learn major muscle groups. Like first we learn how to control our arms before we learn the fine motor skills, right? The finer motor skills of using our fingers, right? Babies learn to move their feet, their legs, before they learn how to wiggle their toes. That's all those 2 concepts mean. Top down, head first, and heart out, cephalocaudal and proximal-dorsal. Those other 2 phrases on this slide simply are textbook terms, but they refer to how we develop the simple thing, right there, hierarchical, and that we learn how to do simple things before we learn how to do complex things. We learn how to hold the ball or uh, hold the toy before we learn how to take the toy apart, right? And yeah, and then the interdependence of systems means that certain systems develop at different paces. Your textbook also in this part of the chapter makes a plug for, so I'm sort of going to be going through my textbook as we go, but it makes a plug for breastfeeding. Now, I am a firm believer that breast is best, as all the research says that breast is best. And I'm a big advocate for, if women are capable of breastfeeding their babies, it's the right choice to make. But I don't want to shame people, and I don't want to be one of those people that emphasizes it so much that women who, for whatever reason, can't breastfeed their children, that they feel shame, because ultimately we're all doing the best that we can to raise our kids. But there's lots of reasons you might not be able to. One, a baby is born prematurely, and when your milk doesn't come in time. A child who's born premature may not have the sucking capacity to, because it takes a lot of muscle, right? It takes a lot of physical strength to nurse. Stress will make it difficult for her to produce milk. Malnutrition will make it difficult for her to produce milk. A very large, rapidly growing baby may not be able to get enough nourishment from their mother's breast milk. So I do not want to suggest that there's something wrong with bottle, but if you can do it, it's best for the baby, and quite frankly, it's best for the mother too. She will very quickly lose weight. I mean, if that's the thing, she'll lose her baby fat. It causes her uterus to contract more quickly. It releases endorphins and oxytocin. She'll feel better. It's a bonding thing. So if you can do it, do it. If you can't, lots of women can't. Yeah, lots of women can't. There's some correlations with um, immunity with breastfeeding. There's some correlations with nutrition, with brain development. There's some evidence that says that babies who are breastfed are less likely to develop obesity. Of course, if you have a cesarean birth, it's the timing, because for your milk to come in requires all of those other hormones that are implicated in going into labor and delivery. If you have a cesarean section, you don't get those hormones. So there's lots of reasons this might not work. My personal story is I wasn't able to with my son, and I felt terrible about it, and I was able to with my daughter, and I did it for a long time, and I never looked better than I did after I was nursing for 6 months, because all of that easily gained hip weight is what is the first to be lost with breastfeeding. There's another important term here called non-organic failure to thrive. I actually didn't see it in this version of the textbook, but what this refers to, yeah, I don't see it. What this refers to is a developmental delay, or a failure to thrive, but it's when a child doesn't grow at the expected or at the typical rate, but by referring to, so they fail to thrive, they fail to grow, they fail to develop, but there doesn't appear to be any sort of biological reason. And the understanding, or the theory, or the research is that children need to be held, they need skin to skin contact, they need interaction, and when they don't have this social interaction with their caregiver, they may simply not grow. And so it's non-organic because it's not part of their biology, it's not part of their organism, but so they're not thrown. Lack of growth, there it is right there, growth due to lack of attention and stimulation. The next topic, and I'm almost at 10 minutes, so I'm going to stop here, but when we come back in the next video lecture, I want to talk about the nervous system development, some of the brain systems, and what we know about the cognitive understanding, the cognitive capacities of brand new babies.